Hello everybody, and welcome to Design Thinking Part 1. I call it Thinking That Will Change Your World, and who wants to be a hero? And there's a reason for that. This is me over here. I'm a professional beer taster. I get hired by companies to sample their wares. Not quite, I'm actually an engineer by trade, and I'm going to be taking you through this short presentation. I am passionate about South Africa, passionate about the subject of innovation and seeing us prosper as a nation. And so part of this presentation is that we need heroes to stand up in this country, to be counted, to make a difference. And this little video is here to try and help you on that way. Maybe you have your own needs. You might have graduated and you're looking at the current job market and saying, wow, it looks a bit weird out there and tough and scary. And I'm hoping that what I'm going to share with you will have quite a lot of meaning, add a lot of value to your career aspirations and challenge your thinking in how you're going to go forward here. So without further ado, disruption is here to stay. Yeah. If you are watching this, we're probably on the tail end or finished COVID-19, and it's been an interesting journey and another form of disruption that has maybe changed the way that we relate to each other. And through the years, we've seen these waves of disruption come, mainly in terms of innovation. We can see that whenever you crossed over from one form of delivery or product to another, there was quite a lot of disruption. So if you were busy making steam-powered industry and the electric motor came along, it would have put a lot of your steam products out of service, because electric motors are just cheaper and easier to use, and the whole combustion engine would have put a lot of coach makers out of business as well, because now everyone's buying cars. And so you can see that we're currently in something called the sixth wave, which looks at things like sustainability, a good buzzword over there, the whole renewable energy, nanotechnology, biomimicry, and other such things. And the challenge doesn't happen while you're on the wave. The challenge happens where one wave meets another wave, because that's where, if you cannot adapt, you tend to fall away or die. And you'll see taxi industries being disrupted by Uber, the hotel industry is being challenged by Airbnb, and that's where all the action is taking place. And we need to be able to be on these waves and be able to cross over from one to another quite easily and to ride them. That's a better way of saying it. Here's another big challenge. So my particular generation has left your particular generation with a bit of a mess. I wouldn't say mine exclusively. I think it was my forefathers and those before me. But we've been exploiting what this planet has to offer for various reasons. And we now need you to fix it so that you can live a long and healthy life. And so we're going to need innovation. We're going to need people who will think outside the box and find creative solutions to achieve the particular goals that are set before us in terms of these sustainable development goals. One thing I want to tackle is this issue of culture in terms of the way that you think. So I came out of a formalized education system that actually really didn't prepare me. The assumption is you go, you study, you get a profession, you become employed, and you do what you were studied to do, be an engineer. No one said along the way that you actually have to be innovative or creative or any of that. And so I've had to really try and push myself into really unpacking other ways of doing things, because the education I had didn't quite go along this way, didn't prepare my thinking or my mind. Whereas I think for you, it's going to be slightly different. You don't have that assumption that this is what you're going to do. I think it's a lot more flexible. There's a lot more opportunity in terms of what lies in front of you, and it can be scarier in some ways as well, uncertainty. But we often were given the solution already and said, okay, we need a bridge to cross this valley, and be innovative. And we would be innovative with the bridge. We would use different materials. Maybe it's a wooden bridge, a metal bridge, or a concrete bridge. Maybe it's got so many spans. We look at, whether we're going to put a train on it, and pedestrians and cyclists. But the bridge was still a bridge. Design thinking takes us back to the opportunity in front and says, okay, but why are you doing this bridge? And you say, okay, well, there are people on the one side, and there's shops on the other side, and there are people want to get from their houses to the schools and the shops, whatever the story is. And so we're going to build a bridge. Okay, but design thinking would say, okay, well, do we really need a bridge? Are there other avenues to explore? What if? And it starts asking the question, what if? What if, we put a 50 slide across? What if we moved the school to the village on this side, or the town on this side, so you don't need to cross the valley? What if? But you've got to stop and you've got to ask those questions. And part of this journey on design thinking is about asking those questions. And it's playful, it's open-minded. It's okay to take risks. We don't care whether your ideas might seem stupid. It's the stupid ideas that are sometimes the best ideas. Who would have ever thought that I could take my car and hire it out to someone else on an app so that they could get from A to B? That would have been unheard of 10, 15 years ago. So it's about generating ideas and falling fast, and then it's a cyclical approach. A hero thinks outside the box. Now, we also sometimes conditioned to think of innovation in a very, very narrow category. It's the offering in the middle. We are getting a new phone. Well, phones are not innovative anymore, but they were 15 to 20 years ago, a cell phone. Maybe energy storage with a battery at utility scale is innovative now as a product. Solar roof home systems, okay, not that innovative anymore, but 5 years ago, yes. But innovation could also be your experience. Maybe it's the Airbnb or the Uber, which is half of the innovation is actually the client experience of being able to just on your phone say, I need to go from A to B without owning my own car, and I know that within 5 minutes someone is going to come and fetch me from where I'm standing at this moment. And so my experience is amazing, and there's no money changing hands. So that entire experience is the innovation, not just the car and the Uber offering. There's a lot more to it than that. Maybe it could be a profit model that says, okay, I'm not going to Airbnb is a profit model where I don't own an asset. I'm going to make my money off letting out other people's assets. So here's my house, you can use it. Airbnb just cream a percentage fee off it without carrying the risk of a collapse in the price of the market. The innovation is different things. Don't get caught up in just thinking of it as a particular product, a new fancy product. It could be anything. It could be the service, the experience that you offer. There's a lot of innovation and experience. If you can get rid of those queues that you stand in to get a car license, you will make lots of money. People will pay for that. So a hero begins his journey. They don't live for themselves in some way. They have empathy. They understand that the calling is bigger than just their own personal enjoyment or their personal agenda. And so behind design thinking is this aspect of what we call empathizing. It's putting yourself in someone else's shoes. So if you have never had to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning to catch a taxi to go to work, it's very difficult for you to come up with solutions to speak into that area, because you're not wearing that other person's shoes or clothing. You don't have to have a cold shower because you turn the tap and there's hot water that always comes out. What I'm saying is that our life experiences will shape how we think. And if you're truly going to make a difference, you're going to have to try and put yourself into someone else's shoes. And part of that is empathizing process. That's what we call empathy, is when you can feel for someone else's pain. So then you can truly engage with them and say, okay, what really keeps you up at night? What can we fix? Because immediately, if you can fix their problem, you have a value proposition that someone often will be prepared to pay for in some form or other. And it's not necessarily about money, but you also have to put food on the table. Then it's about, once we actually understand the problem and we've chatted to whoever the affected parties are, and it could be users of the product, it could be people that would finance it, whatever, we would then be in a position to define the problem a lot better. So the problem isn't designing the best bridge and what materials we're going to use. That's not the problem. The problem is, do we need to get this value proposition from this side of the valley to that side of the valley? I mean, that's the different thing. And then you would ideate around it. So it's throwing ideas around. Hey, I'm going to build a giant catapult, and I'm going to put my packages in the catapult, flick a switch, and they're going to shoot across the valley. A lot cheaper than a bridge. Maybe it's a fiffy slide. We'll just put a piece of cable across and a couple of rollers and just slide everything backwards and forwards. A lot quicker and cheaper and easier than a big concrete bridge. What are the ideas behind that? If you don't need to get a car across that valley, there are other avenues. And then it would be prototyping. Prototyping is where let's put this thing and see if I can make a little model of my valley, scale model down. I'll do it in my back garden with a bit of clay or whatever the story is, and we'll see if we can get this thing to look practical and work, or maybe it's a computer simulation if it's software, and then we'll test it. And so that's typically design thinking. And design thinking is the process that starts with ideation around understanding what the true needs are out there. And that's often we start in the middle. We don't start at the beginning of the ideation process. We already come with, hey, I've got a great idea. But you'll see that ideation is only in the middle. Don't come with your great idea. Go and speak to people first and understand what the real needs are. Not just from our particular perspective, because your view could be quite narrow. So let's just go back to our particular hero, Wakanda, forever. And Africa can show the world that we can do this thing, man. The journey can be quite complex. And I want to take you through quite a well-known literary framework called the hero's journey. And it talks about, they often use this as a basis for writing scripts for movies. Black Panther is an example, Lord of the Rings, a lot of the superhero Marvel movies, a lot of good books, all follow this particular framework. And it begins with a hero at home, smoking his pipe or doing whatever it is. He's in his natural environment. And then there is a call to action. So he sees that all is not right with the world. The ozone layer is being depleted, the ice caps are melting, whatever it is. The city is falling to pieces, corruption is rampant, or there's garbage in the road, but there's a call to action. And there's normally a refusal to immediately answer the call. Hey, I'm comfortable, why should I change? And normally then other people come alongside and give our hero a gentle nudge across the threshold. Gandalf, for example, drags him, Frodo out, or wherever it is, or whatever. But there's a pulling out from your comfort zone and crossing of the threshold. And then the journey begins, and it begins with maybe a couple of failures on the way, a bit of a challenge. Hey, it's not as rosy and easy as it is out here in, let's call it, the other side of the comfort zone. And there are people that are supporting what you're doing, and there are people that are putting obstacles in your way. Not everyone's on your side. And there are people that will come alongside and support, and others that won't. They'll hinder you. But while you're on this journey, you'll see that, wow, you're learning new skills. You actually are changing. You're not the same person you used to be, and you'll start having successes. Hey, that's amazing. I got this thing to work, and someone's interested in what I've got to offer. And then there could be grand trials and revelations, and where you start seeing, oof, that was a disaster, or I've suddenly got a revelation of what's going on. I'm not the same person I used to be. And you realize that you've come across already along this journey, and you can never go back. There's no going back to what you used to know. And the whole acceptance of stepping into your new identity, and then going back to maybe the environment of meeting, I like it, and going back to a school reunion where you're not the same person that everyone knew you were at school, but you've come on a journey, and you're taking your place in the new world. And there's almost like a settling back into, this is the new norm that you're part of. But it's not the same as what it was when you embarked on this journey. And so design and innovation follows this sort of pattern. And I want to encourage you that if you're going to be a hero, be prepared. It's not just plain sailing. There has to be a plan. I've met so many people and friends, and they just don't know what's going to happen, and they don't seem to have any form of motivation to have a plan to change their current environment. And they'll sit comfortably doing the same thing year after year after year. And I'll say to them, come man, there's got to be more. Go and get educated in this area. There's a lot of free online courses available. Just don't stay what you're doing. Just do something a little bit different. And you need to have plans and plans in place to execute that. So I really want to encourage you. You need to, these ways, often set yourself 3 goals. And with those 3 goals, each goal you separate into 3 different actions. I'm going to, for goal 1, these are my 3 actions. Goal 2, these are my 3 actions. And suddenly you have a plan. A simple one, but a plan nonetheless. You put some time frames on it, put some responsibilities, and you're on your way. And then a hero gets help. You're not on your own. And it's important to know that you get support. There are people there that will gladly help you. There are other citizens, friends. There's big industry that might be interested in supporting what you have. The academia, people have researched what you're doing and have done this before. There could be papers on the internet that can help you. And there could be the government putting policies and tax incentives and all sorts of investment schemes or grants there to help finance what you're up to. So it's knowing that, and not just that, when you ideate, it's so important to try and get other people with creative skills and abilities. I mean, I'm an engineer, and sometimes I don't empathize with the arty side of things, although I do art, ironically. But the creatives actually often come and really will throw great ideas around that I would never have thought of. And you really need the synergy of all these creative people and analytics working together to come up with great solutions. Don't just think that if you surround yourself with like-minded people, you're going to have a great innovation. Generally, you're not. It means someone else has been there before. But when you surround yourselves with people who are not like-minded, you're going to criticize what you're doing. Criticism's okay, but it really does help to brush up and to strengthen you and to interrogate what you're doing, to find the flaws and to be able to then fix them. And then the norm. I mean, it's okay, we always drive on this side of the road, don't we? I mean, but here you can see that we're actually moving the cars in this particular example, which was done by a friend of mine. We moved the cars onto the other side of the road, and we reduced accidents by 60% and increased traffic throughput by 60%. eliminating a lot of backlog traffic that was stuck on the highway. And so the ability to challenge the norm and don't accept what you see in your day-to-day, this is how we've always done it. Well, you don't always have to do it that way. There are other ways that could be a lot better. And this was done at a fraction of the price of a normal flyover. Don't just accept what you see or what you live. People just accepted sort of 150 or 200 years ago that your light would come from candles. Okay. Sometimes it feels like we're going back there, but with the flick of a switch, the lights can come on, and that's our norm. So what I also want to start ending off with is that it's about value. That whatever you do in design thinking, you need to have an outcome that adds value. So, what is my norm? What if you're ideating around it? But the next two questions are very important. What wows and what works? So the what wows would be, is there appeal in what I'm doing? Is it sexy? Is it cool? Would I want to own this? And does it function? I mean, it doesn't work if it looks cool, but doesn't work. So you need to have this wow and the works for it to have value. To think about it, how would you spend your money on something? And so these questions, the issue of adding value is intrinsic to the design thinking process. So I'm going to close off here, but we need you as heroes. And this country needs you. The actual global community needs you. And you need to be able to fight disruption, to not just roll over and say, I'm a victim in all of this change that's taking place, to stand up and say, I'm going to take my place as a leader in this disruption. I'm going to ride this wave. I'm not going to just sink and drown in the wave of change that's coming. You're actually going to get on a surfboard or whatever, you're going to ride this thing. And if you fall off that board, you're going to get back up onto it and you're going to continue riding it. So it's knowing that failure is okay, as long as you're moving forward. And then you're going to stay true, which means that you're in it for the long haul. This is not a short-term undertaking. You can't say, okay, for this next week, I'm going to try this, and then, okay, I'm tired of it now. Obviously, if you're on a losing wicket, you need help from friends or advice, and they can see that this is not going to work. Fail quickly, move on. But don't make it a habit of failure or not moving to try and finish anything. And then you've got to have a plan. You can't just go and assume that everything's going to fall out of the sky and land in your lap. You're going to have a plan of how you're going to take certain things. Maybe it's a plan of getting finance, of getting help in certain areas. Then you need to care. You need to care about what you're doing. You need to care about others. And you need to care about how whatever you're doing is going to change the lives of others. And then understand that you're in this with a network. Don't try and do it alone. Go and get help. Do a bit of research. Find out who's been there before. Give them a phone call. Send them an email or WhatsApp, whatever the story is. And then make contact and get some help. Challenge the norm. Don't just take your day-to-day, whatever you've seen, whatever you've done, this is how we've always done it. That's not going to change the world. And then whatever you do, when you examine what you're offering out there, it needs to add value. It needs to wow, and it needs to be functional. So we need you as heroes. Wakanda forever, because this is Africa's time and you're going to be part of this journey. So I encourage you. Thank you for being part of this program. Cheers.